Tune in to the end of the video for a channel update. I consistently made movie reviews for about 5 months. Hard to believe. Some of the old-time reviewers reviewed for much longer. A lot of younger folks find that hard to believe. Jeremy John still at it at 12. Ralph the Movie Maker strong at 6. I always liked to watch the classics. Never had enough time for them though. That's why I started the 52-week movie challenge, sharing with myself and other cinephiles films they might not have seen, but would like to anyway. There's this one film I reviewed a while back. It was The Third Man, directed by Carol Reed. It was a thrilling testimony to how black and white cinematography evokes imagery just as thrilling, if not more so than in color. Folks told me that I ought to review newer films instead of older ones to get more hits. Kids don't know of films before they were born, and I don't know how to make of that. I surely don't. The trends you see now, it's hard to even take its measure. It's not that I'm afraid of it. I always knew you had to be willing to make vids you don't like. But I won't push my chips forward and double down and turn into a sad sellout. A man would have to stick to his guns, and he'd have to say, okay, now review Unforgiven. Every single genre from mysteries to sci-fi films has their own tropes, but their individual greatness comes from what they achieve based on their goals, not by how they're weighed down by their tropes. As far as westerns go, Unforgiven is an exceptional case. When it comes to innovating westerns, there's still actually a wide open range of ideas.
Yeah, well, that's just like, your opinion, man.
Unforgiven is the 1992 revisionist western from director-actor Clint Eastwood. The film takes place in 1880s America, where outlaw murderer and widower William Money, also played by Clint Eastwood, runs a farm in Kansas with his 2 children. The Schofield kid, played by James Woolvett, comes to recruit him to kill 2 cowboys named Quick Mike and Davy Bunting, who cut up a prostitute. Initially turning down the offer, Money instead takes the kid up on his offer, since the reward of $1,000 would help the farmer with his farm and kids. This leads to Money recruiting his old friend, also outlaw, Logan, played by Morgan Freeman.
Coincidence? I think not!
In Big Whiskey, Wyoming, meanwhile, it turns out that the reward was offered by the same prostitute because Sheriff Little Bill, played by Gene Hackman, made Quick Mike and Davy Bunting pay damages to the prostitute's employer rather than to the victim. As Little Bill retains order over the town with a strict anti-gun policy and Money hunts down these 2 cowboys, little do they know that their paths eventually come crossing again. With what Unforgiven immediately struck me was that Eastwood resists playing favorites with his characters. Money is clearly the protagonist, and Little Bill, surprisingly enough, is the antagonist, not the outlaw. Despite that, this more realistic take on outlaws and sheriffs really engaged me with how the film treats violence. Both of these characters resort to violence only when necessary. Little Bill comes off as a lawful neutral, yet he resorts to violence to run criminals out of town. On top of that, Money's pursuit of the criminal for that reward is motivated by supporting his farm and family. It's only when his path crosses with Little Bill where these motivations really blur between vigilantism and martial law. Without giving anything away, this challenging screenplay by David Webb Peoples brilliantly tears away pretense of violence as morally upright. Everyone bears some degree of guilt for their actions. No heroes, no villains, just people whose pasts ultimately rot them from the head down. All the performances across the board are certainly great. Eastwood, Freeman, Hackman, and everyone else bring such charisma. Being that the characters are largely defined by their pasts, they wanted to sit down with any one of these characters and know just what the hell happened that got them to where they ended up at the start of the film. Once again, Peoples' script sprinkled hints of these pasts, from Logan's Native American love interest to English Bob's romanticized escapades, that evoke such alluring intrigue that these characters feel so magnetic. I will say that a major reservation I have with this film, which is something that I can say for the handful of films I've seen directed by Eastwood, is that his presentation mostly comes off as too succinct for his own good. Once in a while, there are some pretty wide shots and memorable incredible color palettes, but it still largely leaves the visual language of Unforgiven much to be desired. Out of all the genres in film, westerns have always been, for the most part, towards the bottom of my personal totem pole. I feel that the genre itself feels way too tied down by the black and white struggle of good versus evil. That's not to say this is an inherently bad dichotomy, as both heroes and villains can be individually compelling, but with films like Tombstone and the original True Grit, the characterization does come off as too cut and dry. This definitely explains why I've gravitated towards the Revisionist Western, or the anti-Western, a subgenre that challenges Western conventions with films like Django Unchained, The Searchers, the remake of True Grit by the Coen brothers, and of course, Unforgiven. The movement allows for grittier yet more authentic takes on the genre for the reasons I've mentioned about the latter. Good guys can be outlaws, bad guys aren't entirely evil, and the Old West can actually be violent and racist. While Unforgiven definitely isn't the first revisionist Western, it serves as a powerful example of why innovating conventions keeps a genre alive. There will always be examples that are nothing but tropes, but the ones that succeed in taking their risks ultimately pay off. Look no further than the superhero genre. Films like Spider-Man and Iron Man succeed within their boundaries, but films like The Dark Knight and Logan testify as great cinema that both challenge conventions and provoke more complex themes like order and mortality, respectively. As with Unforgiven, rejecting the conservative and clear foundations of the Western in favor of venturing into morally murkier waters keep the genre alive. The film embodies the strength of great Westerns. The way that both Eastwood and Peoples challenge the preconceived notions of the genre provides equally engaging characters and themes that largely make up for a modest presentation. I strongly recommend the film for fans of the genre, as well as those who feel exhausted by the genre's cleaner examples. On a scale of 1 to 10, Unforgiven is definitely a sharp shooter. So what's your take on Unforgiven? Have you seen it? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Also, what's your favorite Best Picture winner? Hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you'll know when I post my future videos. You can also find me on Twitter and Instagram at FilmGeekDave. That's all for today, as that concludes my Oscar marathon. Hey everyone, thanks for still tuning in. If you're watching this, then you're playing a big part in keeping my channel going, and I'm entirely grateful for your support. As someone who's yet to receive a formal education in film studies, making these videos has been both fun and educational for me, as well as sharing why cinema is an art form that I hold near and dear to me. Going into each video, I go out of my way to find something new to talk about with each film, while also keeping the focus on my videos on talking about what makes a film tick for better and for worse. With that said, as of the day of this video's upload, I'm going on an indefinite hiatus from these reviews. When starting on YouTube, you're always told,
do it because you love it. Someone's watching.
You'll get there one day, so just enjoy the ride.
That mentality has helped me up until more recently. Ever since my Umbrellas of Cherbourg review, my view count has plummeted. And there are only so many times that I can repeat this wisdom until I say to myself, why am I making these? I know I pour my heart into what I make, but am I just irrelevant? It's gotten to a point where my concern with view count has outweighed my joy of making these videos. The last thing I want to do is torture myself with making more videos despite these reservations, or for popularity's sake. So going on hiatus will definitely help me with my mental health, as well as really think about the directions whereto my videos will go. Don't worry, you're not going to see me rave about God's Not Dead 2 or the Oogie Loves, at least not sober. You're not going to see me take on a family-friendly personality anytime soon. The 52-week movie challenge is not going anywhere. Just absolutely no dramatic changes of the like. Just taking a break. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time when the 52-week movie challenge continues.